Hey everyone, in this video we're going to take a look at the chapter 16 story from the Ecce textbook. And again, like I always say in these, the first thing you want to do, make sure you have the vocab under control, memorize it. There's a decent amount of new words in this chapter. So look at the derivatives, whatever you can to make sure that you understand it, and you can equate it to a little bit of English if that helps, but that you have it memorized so you can translate this. Then you want to dive into the grammar. So this chapter's grammar is a little bit trickier. It's noun adjective agreement, and you're learning about what we call first and second declension adjectives and how they match to nouns, which is a little bit tricky. It's not the most complicated thing in the world, but it definitely can trip you up until you practice it and feel comfortable with it. So once you have the grammar, read through the textbook, watch one of my grammar videos, whatever you have to do. But once you feel comfortable with it, start translating this by reading it aloud. So find a partner in class, read it aloud, practice your pronunciation, have them read it back to you so you can practice your listening skills. That's what you want to do, and that'll be particularly important when it comes to noun adjective agreement, because you'll catch the nouns and adjectives often having the same ending. It'll help you understand which pairs of words are going together. So before we dive into the translation, let's take a look at the grammar and do a quick review just to make sure that we feel comfortable with it. You want to remember that adjectives are describer words. They modify nouns, we say. So for instance, if you said the happy boy or the energetic girl, happy and energetic are adjectives. Happy is describing boy. It's telling you what type of boy it is. And energetic is describing girl, right? What type of girl? An energetic girl. These are what we call adjectives. We've been seeing them since the very beginning of Latin class. But in Latin, when you describe a noun with an adjective, it needs to match in three specific ways: case, number, and gender. So the case is just how that noun is being used in a sentence. So in other words, nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, ablative, or vocative. The number is singular or plural. Literally, how many are there? Is there one of this noun or more than one? The gender is what we've been working on the past couple chapters: masculine, feminine, and neuter. The gender needs to be the same. When you put all these together, this is what we mean when we say that an adjective agrees with a noun, which is why we call it noun adjective agreement. So if we continue, you want to remember that nouns have a fixed gender. So every Latin noun only has one gender, but adjectives don't. So they can have all three genders. So the way I tell it in class is, think of it like chameleons. Whatever they're going with, whatever word they're matching with, that's the gender they're going to use. It's sort of like chameleons changing color depending on what they're near, right? Same idea. So if you think of these two phrases below in the example, or the three phrases rather, you have puella romana, puer romanus, and vehiculum romanum. That word, Roman, it means the same thing in every one of these sentences, or noun adjective pairs, I guess you'd say, but it's spelled differently every time. You have Romana, Romanus, and Romanum, right? The reason why has to do with the gender. Puella is feminine, puer is masculine, and vehiculum is neuter. So we're slightly changing the way that we spell the adjective depending on the noun we're going with. That's the key difference, because in English we don't do this. You could say the happy boy, the happy girl, the happy vehicle, the happy tree. The word happy, that adjective doesn't change, but it does in Latin. So you need to wrap your head around that and practice it. So if we keep moving forward and take this a little bit further, these adjectives are called first and second declension adjectives because they use the endings us, a, which represent their masculine, feminine, and neuter forms. The reason we call them first and second declension is because they're using the same endings as first and second declension nouns. So if we were to think of it that way, they're going to be using, a, if it's feminine, us, if it's masculine, and if it's neuter. I'll show you in a second. Those charts are the exact same thing. Okay, so that's where the name comes from. So the process goes like this. If you want to match an adjective to a noun, you have to figure out the noun's case, number, gender. Remember, we start with the noun because the adjective is going to match the noun, not the other way around. To do this, look at the genitive singular, the second piece of your noun. That tells you what declension it belongs to, and then you work backwards from there. So in other words, if your noun has AE as its genitive singular ending, it's first declension. A long I would make it second, and an IS would make it third. Then you just look at the chart and you try to figure out what case, number, and gender you're looking at, right? And the gender is almost always given to you. If you're looking up in the dictionary, you'll definitely see it, the M dot, F dot, or N dot. The gender is not really the complicated part here. It's the case and number, and that's where you need to look at the noun ending chart. The thing you want to keep in mind is when your noun is third declension, it's not going to be spelled the same way. That's totally fine. Remember, these adjectives are using first and second declension noun endings, not third. So if we have a third declension noun like herbs, right, city, you're going to have herbs romana. It's not the same spelling, but it still matches, and that's totally fine. So don't get stressed out about that. When you have third declension nouns, it might not look correct, but it still is because of the case, number, and gender. And I've contrasted that with puella romana here. Remember, puella is a first declension noun, which is why romana matches it. They both have the A ending. So when you read this story out loud, you'll be able to hear basically what declension your noun is, and we'll see there's another declension for adjectives too. But you can catch the pairs. When you say something like puella romana, it makes sense. You hear that those go together. The ones that are a little tricky are phrases like herbs romana. When you're like, wow, that ending doesn't really sound right, you have to just train your mind to understand that it is correct. It might not look right, but it definitely is, because all you're matching is case, number, and gender. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be spelled the same way. So if we look at our two charts, the top chart here is your noun ending chart, right? And we filled it in with all the genders we've learned so far, masculine, feminine, neuter. Underneath, you have the adjective chart, right? And if you look closely at the adjective chart, the masculine adjective column, right, us, is the same as second declension masculine. The feminine column is the same as first declension for nouns. And the neuter column for adjectives is the same as second declension neuter for nouns. This is why we call them first and second declension nouns. And it's also why, I just said before, if you have a first or second declension noun, and you're using one of these adjectives, a first and second declension adjective, they're going to have the exact same ending. So one of the ways you can do this pretty quickly, the sort of cheat sheet, if you want to think of it that way, once you get good at knowing what declension your noun is, if you know it's first or second declension, you don't even have to really look at this adjective chart. Just use the same ending, because that's what it's going to be. It's when your noun is third declension that you really run into some problems, and you have to think. And that's where case, number, and gender becomes really important. So the long version that'll never steer you wrong is to look up case, number, and gender. The short version, once you get really good at this, is to recognize, okay, I have a first declension noun. I'm just going to use the same ending for my adjective when you're using a first and second declension adjective. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, look through the textbook. Look over the grammar notes. Feel free to watch my chapter 16 video. It gives a little more detail on this. But you want to feel comfortable with these and being able to match a noun to an adjective so you can translate this story. So now we're ready, hopefully, to dive in and take a look at this story. And again, we'll break it into pieces and we'll highlight the different cases so you can get used to seeing and recognizing the endings and translating them. So in the first part of the story, you have Yam nona ora erat. So Yam just means now. Erat is the imperfect tense of esse. It means it was. So now it was the 9th hour, the nona ora. And remember, it doesn't mean 9 o'clock. It means 9 hours after sunrise. So give or take 3 in the afternoon, you might say, if the sun comes up around 6 in the morning. And again, somewhere in that range, but it's mid to late afternoon is really what's going on. You have ad hoc immobilis in fossa haerebat rida. So ad hoc means still. Immobilis means motionless, right? And it's describing the rida. So the carriage, haerebat, was stuck. Motionless is how you can translate this. So it was stuck, still stuck, ad hoc. It was still stuck motionless in fossa, in the ditch. And again, fossa is ablative because you're showing the position or the location of where the rida is, the carriage. Sed nihil facere sextum taidebat, nam puer strenuus erat. So sed just means but. But taidebat, it bored, right? It was boring, you could say, or it bored if you use the textbook's vocab. It bored who? Sextus. He's the direct object. So it bored Sextus nihil facere, to do nothing, meaning he was bored just sitting around doing nothing because he's energetic, right? We know this about him. And it says that in the second part of the sentence. You have nam puer strenuus erat, because he was, erat, a puer strenuus, an energetic boy. So he's bored just sitting there. And again, notice how you have puer and strenuous. There's our noun-adjective pair. It doesn't quite look right because puer ends in an R, but it is masculine, right? They're both masculine, nominative, singular. So the energetic boy, these words are going together, which is why our adjective is strenuous and not strenua, right? Then we have subito, igitor ad ridam curret et quistam aperet. So suddenly, subito, suddenly, therefore, you could say. He runs, curret, ad ridam, to the carriage. So he runs over to the carriage and he opens, aperet, the quistam, a chest. Tum e quista pilam extrahet, right? So then he takes out, extrahet, he grabs out or drags out, you could say. What does he grab out? A pilam, a ball. Right? A quista, out of the chest. And again, quista is ablative because you're showing motion out of something. So basically this first opening to the story is Sextus is bored, the carriage is still in the ditch, so he grabs a ball because he wants to. Visne pila ludere marke clamat. So he shouts, meaning Sextus shouts, clamat, visne pila ludere. Visne is vis. It means you want. Remember, the any just means you're asking a yes or no question. So he's asking Marcus, do you want, because it's a question, do you want ludere to play pila with the ball? You could translate it as, do you want to play ball? Marke is vocative because he's talking to Marcus. So he says, do you want to play ball, Marcus? Pilam ad Marcum statum jacet. So again, there's no nominative case noun here because it's still referring to Sextus. You go to jacet, he throws. What does he throw? The pilam, the ball. He throws the ball to Marcus, ad Marcum statum, immediately. So he immediately throws the ball to Marcus. Marcus eam excipit et ad sextum metit. So Marcus catches it. Excipit, it can mean to welcome, but it almost means like he receives it or catches it, you could say. Eam is your direct object. It means it. And you'll notice here that eam has an am ending. It's feminine accusative because it's referring to the pila, which is a feminine noun. So Marcus catches it and he sends, meet it, right? He sends it, you could say, ad sextum, to Sextus. So they're saying that Marcus catches the ball, and by sends, it really means like throws. He throws it back to Sextus. Identidem pueri pilam jacieban alter ad alterum. So again and again, identidem, the boys, pueri, jacieban, they were throwing, imperfect tense. They were throwing the pilam, the ball. Alter ad alterum means one to the other. So when you have alter and alter, right, two of them together, you're usually saying one and the other, right? So the first alter means one, and the second one would just mean the other, to the other. So they're throwing it back and forth. You have tum sextus, qui semper corneliam vexare vult, per iocum pilam jacet et corneliam ferret. So then Sextus, and then we have a side thought here. Qui means who always, vexare vult, wants to annoy, it's our complementary infinitive, who always wants to annoy Cornelia, she's the direct object. What does he do? He jacet, he throws the pilam, the ball, right? Pilam jacet. He throws it per iocum, as a joke, right? So he's joking around, it's like a prank. So he throws it as a joke, and ferret, he hits or he strikes Cornelia. Corneliam is your direct object again. So he always wants to annoy her, so he takes the ball that they're throwing and he chucks it off her head or whatever he does. He hits her with the ball. Statem errata Cornelia ad matrum severte, et cur me semper vexat Sextus mater clamat. So immediately, angry Cornelia, here's our noun adjective pair, errata Cornelia, right? Angry Cornelia, severte, she turns herself ad matrum, to her mother, right? Say there is what we call a reflexive pronoun. Don't worry about this yet. It just means herself, right? It's saying, what is she turning? She's turning herself, direct object, to her mother, and she shouts, clamat, cur, why does Sextus, right? He's the subject. Why does Sextus always annoy? Semper vexat. Why is he always annoying me? Me is your direct object. So she says, and mater, right, is vocative. She's asking her mother. She says, why is he always annoying me? Then she continues and asks, cur pilam in me jacet, right? Why is he throwing jacet, the pilam, the ball, into me, right? In me. It's accusative because there's motion involved, into me, right? Meaning, why is he hitting with the ball? Quam molestus puer est Sextus. How annoying, molestus, a boy is Sextus, right? How annoying he is what she says, meaning he's so annoying, right? Then it continues, and the mother responds, right? You're going to see, you have veni ad me, carissima, respondet mater, et filiam complexu tenet. So veni means come, it's a command. Veni ad me, come to me. Carissima is the vocative. This is what the Aurelia, the mom, chooses to call her daughter, right? Dearest, right? Come to me, dear, or dearest, you could say. Respondet mater, responds the mother, meaning Aurelia. And she tenet, she holds her filiam, her daughter, complexu, in an embrace. It's ablative. Don't worry about the U ending. It's just a different declension. It's a fourth declension noun. We'll get there eventually. But it's basically describing how she's holding her daughter, right? Holding her in an embrace. Then you have Sextus te ferire in animo non habebat. So Sextus does not have in mind, in animo non habebat. He was not having in mind, you could say. So habebat, imperfect, was having, in animo, in mind. It means he didn't intend to do what? Ferire, to hit te, to hit you. So she's kind of protecting or justifying Sextus's actions. Aurelia says he didn't mean to hit you. Then she completes her defense of Sextus by saying, est puer strenuus, est puer temerarius, non tamen est puer scelestus. So she says he is, meaning Sextus is, a puer strenuus, an energetic boy. He is a puer temerarius, a reckless boy, right? Or a bold or reckless boy. But non tamen est puer scelestus. However, tamen, he is not, non est, a puer scelestus, a wicked boy. So she's defending him by saying he's energetic, he's kind of reckless and does dumb things at times, but he's not wicked. He doesn't mean to be, mean is the idea. So she's defending Sextus, saying he's young, he's just playing around, he doesn't mean to be, like a jerk by doing this, is the idea. Sed cur Sextus apud nos habitat, rogat Cornelia, quae ad hoc errata est. She says, but why, cur, is Sextus habitat? Why is he living apud nos, with us, right? Why is he living with us? Cornelia rogat, Cornelia asks. And it's Cornelia who still, right, ad hoc errata est, is still angry, right? So she's still angry. She says, why is he living with us? Cur pater sexti eam ad nos mite. So why does the father of Sextus, pater sexti, there's our genitive of Sextus, why does Sextus's father mite, send him eam ad nos, to us, right? So she's saying, why is he sending him to us? Why is Sextus even here, right? And they're about to give you the backstory of Sextus. And it says, pater sexti ad Asiam iter facet. So the father of Sextus, Sextus's father, is traveling or is making a journey, iter facet. So he's traveling ad Asiam, to Asia. So that's why he's not here. He's off in Asia. Okay, so he's not in Italy. So that's why he's not here. Quod pater abest, necesse est sextum in Italia relinquere. So it says, because his father abest is away, it is necessary, necesse est, relinquere, to leave behind. Right, it finishes, the infinitive is finishing the thought of necesse est. So it's necessary to leave behind Sextus, he's the direct object, or to leave Sextus behind, you could say, in Italia, in Italy, right? And again, it's ablative because it's showing a position or a location. So because he's gone, he has to leave his son behind. Itaque, quod pater sexti hospes patris tui est, Sextus apud nos manet. So itaque means and so, because the father of Sextus, pater sexti, est is a hospes, a friend of your father, patris tui. Patris tui is genitive. So it's saying because Sextus's father is a friend of your father, Sextus, manet, is staying apud nos, with us, right? So Sextus is staying with us. This is the reason why. Quid tamen de matre sexti, rogat filia, cur illa filium non curat. So Cornelia responds and says, but what about the mother of Sextus? So de matre means about. So quid de means what about. Tamen just means however, right? So however, what about the mother of Sextus? Filia rogat, the daughter asks, meaning Cornelia asks. Cur illa filium non curat. Why does she, illa, non curat, not take care of filium, her son, right? So she's saying, where's Sextus's mom? Eheu, responded Aurelia. Mater sexti ut scis iam mortua est. So Aurelia responded. She says, eheu, alas, or oh no, right? Mater sexti, the mother of Sextus, ut scis, as you know. Notice how scis, scire means to know, the s ending means you know. So as you know, iam, now, mortua est, is dead. So Sextus's mother has died, right? So that's why he's never talking about his mother and why his mother is not in the story. Matram non habat Sextus. Sextus, our subject, non habat, doesn't have a matram, a mother. Tacebat Cornelia, non iam ira commota. So Cornelia, tacebat, was silent. It's imperfect. She was silent or was quiet. Non iam, meaning no longer, commota, moved. Commota is describing Cornelia. She's no longer moved. And again, it means emotionally moved, not physically moved. Ira, by anger. There's our ablative. It's explaining how she's emotionally moved. And again, we translate it as by anger. So Cornelia hears this and she goes quiet because she feels bad that she's been basically making fun of Sextus and yelling at him when she remembers that his mother isn't here anymore. So after all this, and now you have Cornelia feeling bad, you have the end of the story. You have eo ipso tempore tamen Sextus. Visne nobis cum ludere Cornelia exclama. So eo ipso tempore is ablative, at that very moment. And remember, we've said the ablative kind of on its own here can often represent time. And this is a version of the timing ablative, right? At that very moment, however. Sextus exclamat, he shouts. And he says, vis ne nobiscum ludere. So vis ne again is just vis. Do you want? The ne just means you're asking yes or no question. Do you want ludere to play? There's our complementary infinitive. Nobiscum, cum means with. Nobis is ablative plural, us, right? With us is how you translate this. So do you want to play with us, Cornelia? He shouts, quamquam tu es puella, pilam iacere fortasse potes. So here we have Cornelia feeling bad. And Sextus finally comes around after he's been, mean to her. He says, hey, do you want to play with us? And it sounds like we're turning a corner. He's being nice. Then he says this, quam means although. So although you are, 2s, puella, a girl. And it's like, okay, here we go. He's going to say something stupid. So he says, although you are a girl, perhaps fortasse, potes, you are able, iacere pilam, to throw a ball. There's his last kind of dig at Cornelia. He says, if you want to come play with us, maybe you can throw a ball because you're a girl, right? Is the joke they're trying to make and having him be annoying, right? And again, this book is very old. So, back in the day, apparently, this was a good joke from Ecce Romani in the 70s, right? So it's saying, although you're a girl, maybe you can throw a ball. Dum clamabat, jam ridebat et effugiebat. So while he was shouting, clamabat, and notice that it's imperfect tense. While he was shouting, now he was laughing, ridebat, meaning Sextus was laughing, and effugiebat, he was running away. So the effugiebat part implies that he knows this is going to annoy Cornelia because he says this and he runs away from her immediately, right? So he makes his dig and he runs. Iterum errata Cornelia, abi moleste puer clamat, pila ludere nolo. So again, Cornelia is angry, right? So again, you could almost say angry Cornelia, clamat, shouts. But she's back to being angry, right? She lost her anger before, she felt bad, now she's angry again. And she shouts, abi, go away, right? There's our imperative. It's positive singular, meaning she's telling one person to do something. In this case, Sextus. She says, go away, moleste puer. This is vocative, what she chooses to call him, annoying boy, right? Pila ludere nolo. Nolo is I don't want. Right? I don't want, we need an infinitive to finish that thought, ludere, to play. So I don't want to play pila, ball, with the ball, right? I don't want to play ball. So this story is focusing a lot on, things that we've been covering, but in particular, it's trying to get adjectives across to you. So there's a bunch of adjectives in here. In this last little phrase, you can see errata Cornelia, for instance, angry Cornelia. So you want to just make sure that you're paying attention to that. That's the key grammar we're after. It's nothing too crazy yet, but you're going to see in chapter 18, we're going to come back to this idea and add more or a different type of adjective, and that's where it gets a little bit more complicated. So for now, just keep after it, keep translating. Hopefully this video helps. If you have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the comments. I'll help however I can. But again, the more you read, the more you practice your translation, the more confident you're going to feel. So hopefully you're feeling in a pretty good place now that we're 16 chapters.